Hello, I'm Linda Kavanagh, the COO of AusCyber, the Australian Cybersecurity Growth Network. We are proud to be sponsor of Black Hat Asia 2021, supporting the great work that they do for every element of the cybersecurity community across Asia Pacific and globally. I have to say, I'm quite excited myself to be able to present to you, albeit via video. It's just not the same without the buzz of the conference around you. My presentation today will be a bit different. It's not technical in nature, and I don't have any slides to share with you. It's more of a thought piece or an opinion piece for me to discuss with you about some specific cybersecurity learnings I've had over the last 3 years. So I suggest you just sit back with your favourite drink or snack and relax for a little bit. Like many of you, I've spent my life working with data / information / intelligence. For me, it's been from the perspectives of law enforcement, politics and policy, and now cybersecurity. Privacy and the ethical use of data has always been at the centre of what I do. And I've seen how the use and more important, how the importance of that data has changed with the advent of technology and the advancement of technology. With that, its value has skyrocketed. Of late, there has been a new term that has been coined, data is the new oil. I don't think the value of data has changed significantly. It's just the accessibility that has made it so much more richer and more appealing. No longer are we reliant on the old cloak and dagger style asset drops at a park for information when we actually have it all at our fingertips. No longer are we so reliant on having to recruit assets over months and years to provide us access to that information when we have people and teams of people who are skilled and have the curiosity to do it in less than half that time through technology. The ease at which that information is available adds to this, not just state secrets or commercial information. I'm also talking about personal information that can make you susceptible to cybercrimes, such as identity theft or fraud. Data is much more than the new oil when you consider it outside of economic terms. Are we sharing too much data about ourselves online is the eternal question. Has this consent, though, been taken out of our hands? And are we complicit in this reality? If you'd actually asked me these questions 3 years ago, my response would have been completely different to today. Our digital identity has real world value to those who wish to use it maliciously. But I've come to understand that its value can be of greater benefit in a myriad of ways, in particular and more personally, if I'm a victim of crime. It can help if I go missing, if I'm kidnapped or trafficked, and it can help solve my murder. My digital identity, our digital identity, is proof of life in the 21st century. Up until 3 years ago, I had a minimal digital footprint. In fact, there are probably 2 or 3 instances that you can find on the internet, and they are due to an oversight in redacting of information and freedom of information requests. In terms of social media, I had ghost accounts or sock puppets for work, but my personal social media account was through Facebook, and that was only about 4 years ago. I purposefully didn't have a smartphone until about 5 years ago, and that was only because it was supplied to me through work. Working for law enforcement, I had additional protections afforded to me in relation to information. I could suppress a lot of other personal identifiers, such as the electoral roll and other publicly available information. In terms of other footprints, I would go as far as limiting electronic transactions for banking and purchases. Yes, it would all be in cash. And yes, many of my friends thought I was paranoid. But look, I would laugh this off by saying that, hey, you never know, I might want to rob a bank one day, and I really don't want to give police a head start to my movements. My lack of a digital footprint was done on purpose. I was protecting myself, my family, from malicious use of information, our personal information. But also, I valued my information and privacy too much to lose control of it in the cyber world. Having worked in areas where this information was targeted for specific purposes, I will add, on a legal basis, I saw how a person's life could be pieced together quite easily. Again, this position came from my 20 plus years with the Australian Federal Police, and with it brought a very heightened sense of cybersecurity. Now, I've shared a fair bit with you about myself, but it's primarily to paint you a picture of where I came from and why this next piece was a significant step in the importance of an element of our data being available as open source intelligence, or OSINT, and particularly my data. So in 2019, I founded Australia's National Missing Persons Hackathon, a crowdsourced OSINT event to help generate leads for police on missing persons cases. This was delivered in partnership between AusCyber, the Australian Federal Police, and Tracelabs in 2019 and 2020. We had participants across the whole country gathering OSINT for 6 hours on 12 missing person cases. And we did it not only to assist law enforcement, but to showcase another element of cybersecurity and demonstrate its value to the broader community. And of course, we did that with the aim of hopefully locating a missing person. In managing the delivery of the first event, for me, the value was primarily about assisting law enforcement, assisting police, as I know how little resourcing they have in general, but then to also put it towards missing persons cases. I knew it was going to be a great thing to do, but didn't realise until the day of the event the gravity of what we had achieved personally and professionally. So the 2019 event was in person, it was prior to COVID, and we had 350 participants across the country. And at the location I was at, I was sitting with 100 people in a room who were surfing the web to find any piece of OSINT on a missing person. This really hit home for many people. We were part of someone's life, piecing someone's life together to find them. Not because they had committed a crime, but because they had vanished from their life and their loved ones were waiting for them to come home or to gain resolve on what happened. I stood with a father whose son had left home to go for a walk at a nearby nature reserve, and he never returned. The father was watching with amazement as photos of his son and his family were popping up on laptops across the room and telling me when that photo was taken. He was also extremely grateful and humbled that 350 people across the country were helping him look for his son. That is something that will always remain with me. I can never forget the emotion in his voice as he kept saying thank you to us over and over again. The National Missing Persons Hackathon is unique in many ways due to its scale, but the skill and use of OSINT is not. And there are many examples around the world where OSINT was used to help police save a child, prevent a crime, or resolve a crime. And delving further into this world is where I started seeing the different value of a digital footprint. Going from a potential personal threat to a potential personal lifesaver. And it challenged every part of me. What if someone in my family went missing? How would I track them when I've locked everything down to an inch of their life? How do I reconcile relaxing cybersecurity practices for a digital footprint that could potentially be maliciously used? There were numerous questions circling in my mind. How does someone like me change their staunch position on privacy and ethical use of data on digital footprints? How does someone like me stop viewing data as either an economic driver for the corporate world or criminal enterprises, as a disinformation campaign for politics on my feed, but rather see it as a potential lifesaver? The biggest challenge to this for me is the issue of ownership of that information and the ability to gain access to it in times of need. Just as most legislation has not kept pace with the advancement of technology, this is also true when it comes to who owns the data. There are many instances around the world where Apple, Google, and the like would not permit family members to access the tracking data on a phone or an account of a person who went missing. We know that the first few hours are crucial to solving these cases, but contrary to what you may think, police in Australia anyway cannot gain access to this information in a timely manner and without reams of paperwork and high ranking signatories. Just as we have a legacy contact on some of our accounts, is it time we broaden the definition of its use? Or is it time that we push the boundaries when it comes to who owns this information? Last year, during several webinars on OSINT, I asked the audience about whether they are concerned about how much information they post. And I have to say, it was really surprising, the answer to me, as it was truly a 50-50 split on a yes or no answer. In the many presentations that I do in relation to personal cybersecurity and the use of social media, I've had numerous follow-ups from people, particularly young people, students, who start Googling themselves and then automatically start deleting that information or locking their accounts down, not realizing just what information was out there. Little did I know that when I accepted a job with Cyber, that the cyber community loves Twitter and LinkedIn. So my digital footprint over the last 3 years has made up for my lifetime of not having one. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Uber Eats, Signal, whatever it may be, I've got all the applications and it takes 5 pages, if not more, on my phone. This took me a long time to become accustomed to become comfortable with. What helped was gaining a better knowledge on what to do to protect myself outside of not having a digital footprint, and an understanding of where the app was developed or who it was financed by or where the data is housed. But more importantly, that I had control of what I was sharing. All of these questions continue to be critical today for me, for any software or any application. And no, I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole of using Facebook and Google. Sometimes we live with just what we live with. So in that respect, in actual fact, the absence of a digital footprint can also raise more questions with employers, or even with those that mean to do us harm, as nowadays it usually points to national security employment, which in itself makes you a target in various ways. My answer to many of the questions I raised, I've realised, is very simple. As I said, it is what it is, but for the greater good. Whatever portion I can control, I will, without sacrificing good cybersecurity practices. I've come to accept that the passive and active data footprint I leave behind is my proof of life. No need to wait for the ransom to come through from my kidnappers to ask for that proof of life. Just start tracking me straight away. Look, I'll finish off with this. In the 17th century, Descartes said, "I think, therefore I am." Although his meaning was more to signify one's doubt of oneself, our self-awareness, I think that in the 21st century, it would be apt to say, "I connect, therefore I am." Thank you for listening and enjoy the rest of Black Hat Asia 2021.